This is Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
It's the Morning Majlis. It's the Morning Majlis.
Welcome back on to the Morning Majlis, and we are very, very excited for the all-big event that's going to take place today. As we speak, we are gearing up for the Xposure International Photography Festival that is coming in its 6th edition this year, and is starting today, and it's going until the 15th of February, and it's taking place at Expo Center Sharjah. And we're looking forward to this year's edition because it comes with a lot of activities, comes with a lot of workshops, seminars, competitions, a lot of participation from different photographers and entities from all around the world, not just from the UAE. And that's something that we're going to be looking forward to. And we want to learn more about Xposure, what to expect from this year's edition. So we have the amazing Mr. David Newton with us. He's a photographer himself, and he will be hosting the show with our very own Mikel Attia that will be starting every single day at 12 p.m. on Pulse 95 Radio, the dedicated show for Xposure International Photography Festival. So we would like to welcome here in the studio Mr. David Newton. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us. So we're going to be talking about all things photography with you today. Can you talk to us about your involvement in this year's Xposure, particularly your workshop that you'll be having as well?
For sure. So This is my third Xposure. And this year, as before, I will be giving a series of different workshops. I think I've got 5 different workshops to be hosting. So some of them will be looking at the basics of photography. Some will be looking into composition, more of the artistic side of photography. We're going to be talking about lighting, light being the basis of everything to do with taking pictures. So I'm going to be talking about flash and how to shape and modify light. And then we've got something interesting and creative, how to do macro bubble photography. A whole mishmash of different things.
What's macro bubble photography, if you don't mind me
asking?
Macro
bubble photography, goodness, I opened myself up to this, didn't I? Imagine when you blow a bubble with some soap.
Right.
Okay.
And now try and visualize taking a picture of that bubble.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
So it's very difficult. Small bubbles, and when you look at a bubble in great detail, you see all of these interesting, mesmerizing shapes and patterns and colors, and so it would be how to light and capture those bubbles.
So you're a photographer yourself,
I am
obviously.
a photographer myself. Yeah.
And how did you fall in love, and when did you fall in love with photography, and what makes this art form so compelling to you?
Well, I was a marine biologist originally. And while I was at university, I discovered cameras. I think a lot of people go to university and discover all sorts of other things, but I discovered cameras. And
so you've had no exposure to this before university at all?
Not really, no. Oh. I didn't really have much photography interest or exposure. And then, there was a guy that was in my same hall with me, and he had a camera, and I thought it looked like a great way of spending money. So I bought a camera and took an awful lot of pictures and made a lot of mistakes, and 20 years later I'm still making a lot of mistakes, just at a higher level.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm looking at your portfolio as well. It's on the website, photopositive.co.uk. Absolutely beautiful photographs. Got a lot of landscapes there as well. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the subjects that you're interested in photographing?
I have a very diverse portfolio of things I like to photograph. Fundamentally, I just love taking pictures. The subject is, I'm not going to say less relevant, but the actual process of taking pictures is what really excites me. But I do spend a lot of time photographing landscapes. I love being out in nature, connecting with nature and observing the changing light on the landscape and just how the world wakes up in the morning and goes to sleep in the evening. Just observing that is something that I find very therapeutic and very calming, and a great way of connecting with the world. Landscapes form a great part.
So it's safe to say that you're a nature photographer?
Among other things.
Maybe
the natural world.
All right.
I love photographing people as well, particularly when I'm traveling. I guess I'm probably more of a travel photographer because travel encompasses so many other things. It can be portraits, it can be landscapes, it can be wildlife, it can be events that are going on. I think it's the broadest church of photography, in my opinion, is travel.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the power of a photograph? What is it? What do photographs say to you? What do they mean to you? Especially if you look at other people's photos as well.
I think photos tell a story.
Right.
And when you watch a video tells a story in long form, but a photograph has the power to move you immediately. And a great photograph will tell you a story that maybe you otherwise would have missed, but it will tell you in an encapsulated short form, whilst potentially asking questions or prompting you to go and find out more information. It's a very visceral communication medium that we can all connect to because we all spend our time looking at things. And I guess what a photographer does is just frames what you look at as the viewer by their vision of what they're seeing.
But what's so interesting about it too is you take pictures of something, and you might have, you're deliberate about it as well, because what you do is extremely technical, and you can see all those amazing choices that you make in your photographs and the ones you discuss in your workshops as well. But what's so interesting about it is, like any other art form, you make something, it's almost like your baby, but then people start to interact with it in different ways and find their own meaning in your photographs as well. So can you talk to us a little bit more about that aspect of it, the response to your images and such?
Oh, for sure. Photography is, as with any art form, it's subjective. So what I find beautiful, you may not find beautiful at all. And so when you put a picture out there, you are inviting comment. And you are putting yourself out there and your work out there to be judged by others, and you are never going to get universal praise. Nobody's going to love all of your pictures because we all see the world in different ways, and we all want to interact with the world in different ways. But
does it surprise you sometimes if someone notices something in a photograph of yours that you're like, oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it?
I think that's classic of all art, really, isn't it? I remember a cartoon years ago. It was an artist. That was a drawn cartoon. An artist was going on a gallery tour, and he said, "I love coming on these. I get to find out what my pictures really mean."
Yeah,
that's true. I still don't understand. Like, I'm not that deep to the point where when I look at a photograph, it takes me to a different world.
Right.
So that's the question that I have for you. What was the last photograph that you have come across or seen, not of your own, that really took you to another world, if you remember?
Oh, I think...
or touched you in a way.
Well, come to Xposure. There are many pictures. I walked around Xposure yesterday while some of the exhibitions were being put up, and we have displaying this year some phenomenally incredible photographers. Some of the potentially most famous photographers currently living, with some of the most well-known images. So the likes of James Nachtwey, Joel Sartori, Steve McCurry, their exhibits are mind-blowing, and some of the pictures you will recognize, and they will transcend place. They will take you to a place and tell you a story, and sometimes that story will be quite painful to look at, because thinking of potentially James Nachtwey, for example, he's a conflict photographer, so a lot of his pictures can be quite painful and quite searing, and obviously incredibly insightful, but they also speak to you on a human level and the level of human suffering. So, there are millions of pictures in the world, but if you've got time, come to Xposure and explore what's on display here, and there will definitely be pictures that speak to you.
So you have the show starting at 12.
Yes, I will be on air at 12 again.
On air, and then after that?
After that, I've got a workshop at 2, and then another one at 4:30.
Revolving around what exactly?
So the one at 2 is it's a kind of an introduction to photography. It's called Photomechanics. It's trying to take people who are just beginning in their photographic journey, explaining to them how to take control of their
beginners.
Camera. It's very much a beginner's workshop, this one.
Okay.
Explaining how to take control of their camera, because a lot of people come to photography through mobile phones where you don't have an awful lot of control.
It's true.
You just point and press, and the camera does a lot of magic in the background. And fundamentally, if you want to be a better photographer, you need to understand some of the basics of photography, understand how the camera is capturing light, how you can control how it captures light, so that you can put your spin on the picture that you want to take. And the photomechanics will basically be taking people through the basics of photography, try and give them a little bit more understanding about the picture taking process.
And what is the camera that you use mainly?
I'm a Canon photographer, so I use Canon.
Okay.
At the moment, a Canon R5 is my camera of choice.
Okay.
And David, can you talk to us a little bit more as well about, because you brought this up, the mobile phones. Photography's become more accessible than ever.
100%. There are more people taking more pictures more often than there ever has been. it's democratized photography, I think.
Has it been? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's not a bad thing in the slightest. It's opening people up to the photographic art form, to visual expression in a way that's never been possible before.
Has it been disruptive to photography in a way, or maybe getting more and more people into it? Have you seen any trends? Are people showcasing in these exhibitions, in these settings, photographs taken with their phones?
Oh, there certainly are. I don't think there's anyone at Exposure this year with images taken on a mobile phone, but I haven't seen all the exhibitions. But, mobile phones are incredibly capable these days. Every new phone that comes out has a new feature that makes taking pictures a little bit easier or makes the pictures a little bit better. And it's just part of the rise of photography, the growth of photography as this visual art form.
And finally, if you'd like to sum up what Xposure is all about, because you've been involved in it for years now, how would you describe it to our listeners?
Exposure is probably globally the most interesting, most diverse exhibition of photography anywhere. And every photographer that comes here, despite the fact that we have, as I said, some of these absolute luminaries of the photographic world here, I think pretty much everybody feels like an imposter, because all of the work that's on display is so exceptional that nobody feels like they deserve to be here. We all look at each other's work going, that's incredible, you're amazing, why am I here? So I think, it's an incredibly powerful exhibition that will shape the conversation around photography for years to come, and continues to do so.
Absolute pleasure having you with us this morning, David, and we look forward to your live show with Mikhail on Pulse 95, 12 p.m. Don't miss it. And if you'd like to learn more about David Newton's work, incredible photographs, head over to photopositive.co.uk. And for more information on the Exposure International Photography Festival and what you can do at the 6th edition, then head over to exposure.ae. Stay tuned to Pulse 95. We'll keep the discussions going this morning. Up next, we're going to be talking all about the Oscar nominations here on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of the Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe. 95. Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories. Pulse.